Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Pod Save Chocolate. My name is Clay Gordon. I'm your host, and today we are going to be talking about not just ceremonial cacao, but Certified Ceremonial Cacao Guide course certification, and whether or not there is such a thing as a Certified Ceremonial Cacao Guide, what it means for this certification process. Is it fact? Is it a scam? Is it real? Let me know, all right, what you think, because you can go into the live chat on YouTube or the comments on LinkedIn and Facebook, and you can let me know if what you think. You can say, hey, Clay, I think you're wrong. Hey, Clay, I think you're right. You might have a question about my interpretation. Go into the live chat, go into the comments, and let me know. But before we begin, I want to mention that this episode of Pod Save Chocolate, like every episode of Pod Save Chocolate, is sponsored by the members of The Chocolate Life. This is the homepage of The Chocolate Life right now. You can go click on the join button and you can become a member. There's always a free member. There has been since 2000. When did I start this? 2008. There's always been a free membership tier. And if you do have the financial resources, memberships premium memberships start at $5 a month. But again, we live in interesting times, and if you don't have the financial resources to support me, becoming a member of the Chocolate Life, a free member of the Chocolate Life, also shows your support. So as with every episode of Pod Save Chocolate, I put together a post. And here is the post for today's episode. So it provides a run of show, and just I want to make sure if whoever is watching, just let me know if my audio is coming through properly. I didn't get the earphones working, but I want to make sure the microphone says I'm working. I just want to make sure that everything is okay. So appreciate that. But here is the post for today's episode. It is a run of show, so it will go through all of the things that I want to talk about, and it will also give links to resources that you can go to. And so why am I doing this? Why am I talking about a cacao ceremony certification? And the reason why I'm doing that is that there's no definition that is an accepted definition for what ceremonial cacao is. And so the notion of there being a Certified Ceremonial Cacao Guide certification, built on top of this shifting ground, seems to be rather interesting. And I wanted to take a look at it because a colleague, a friend of the Chocolate Life, pointed it out to me, and it was interesting. So this is part of the Ask the Chocolate Life series. So the company in question is called Naturalistico. And here is the page for the Cacao Ceremonial Guide certification on the Naturalistico website. And we're going to go take a look not just at what they claim for the certification, but also what other certifications are on the website. And then we're going to go, as I say, go talk about what is and what is not mentioned. And in part, this is because one of the goals I have here on The Chocolate Life is to go take a look at the claims that are being made about chocolate and cacao, right? And give you the tools so that you can be a better consumer of information. So part of that is it's not necessarily hyper skepticism, right? But it's being a critical consumer, taking a look at what is being said, and then being able to look for markers and that it might be true, it might be untrue, it might be partially true, but also giving you some tools to go, how would you go about examining the claims that are being made? And so that's what this is. That's what today's episode is about. Again, there is no accepted definition for what a ceremonial cacao is. And so what does it mean to be a certified ceremonial cacao ceremony guide if there's no definition for what ceremonial cacao is? So let's go back to the post for today's episode and to point out that I've covered the subject in the past. So most recently in Pod Save Chocolate episode 179, I took a look at a company called Maya, M-A-I-A. They were making claims for ceremonial cacao and nattokinase enhanced ceremonial cacao would clear your arteries. And I took a look at it and said, okay, what is the likelihood that this is in fact a scam? And I pointed out that if you're calling something ceremonial cacao, and what you're doing is you're selling cocoa powder, if you're selling cocoa powder, then you can't be ceremonial grade, because one of the only things that's associated with consistently with something being ceremonial grade cacao is a lack of processing. And so fundamentally turning something into cocoa powder. So taking cocoa paste and then separating out the fat and the non-fat solids, the cocoa powder. That's fundamentally not ceremonial grade. It just breaks all the rules because of the amount of processing. Then I've also done a deeper dive. This is well over, oh gosh, well, this is in 2023. So it's been a couple of years now. I took a look at ceremonial cacao and cacao ceremonies. So if you're interested in my background and my thoughts on these things, you can go take a look at those episodes. So what is Naturalistico claiming? That their course is completely online. You can get certified in 20 days. There's a 30-day money-back guarantee, and you pay only $97, which includes a certificate, right? The regular price is only $97, and there's some bonus stuff if you sign up. So the total value is $2,500. So that's just the top line marketing pitch. But what also are they saying? So I took this information, which you can see here, from the Naturalistico website, make it a little bigger. I don't necessarily know that you're going to be able to read all of it, but it's going to be on playback. So discover the art and spirit of cacao ceremonies. Now, there is, I've italicized things. This little markup here says there's a footnote that these emphases are added. So you won't find these emphases, the italicizations and the bold in the original. But our comprehensive cacao ceremony practitioner certificate is designed to empower you with the skills, knowledge, and the spiritual depth. That was right. Needed to guide heart-opening rituals with authenticity and respect for cacao's cultural roots. So that's what they're claiming. You're going to master cacao ceremony facilitation. So there's a comprehensive hands-on course, right? That when you will engage in hands-on practices such as preparing ceremonial cacao, leading intention-setting rituals, and integrating sound healing and breath work into your ceremonies. One of the observations that I have made in the past, and one of the observations I'm going to make about just from these two paragraphs, and then this bolded text in the paragraph below, trauma-informed practices and the integration of sound and movement. All of these are adapted from a modern New Age spirituality. There's no history, there's no documentation that things like trauma-informed practices or sound healing, right, become integrated as a part of cacao ceremonies. And so it's important to understand that that's what's going on, is there is a modern definition for what a cacao ceremony is. It is essentially misappropriation or layering on top of something which might have a legitimate historical basis, but all of the stuff we're putting on top of it is not a part of the original ceremony. It's something that has been imposed upon it, and has been imposed upon it relatively recently. We'll get to that. But before I do, Juan Gonzalez from Mabco in Canada, but Juan has a direct cultural connection. So you're absolutely right about one key point. There's no official certification anywhere in the world that designates a cacao as ceremonial. It's not just an official certification, Juan. There's no legal definition for what constitutes ceremonial cacao as opposed to any other kind of cacao. There are informal definitions which usually are around low processing, so minimal processing, connected to genetics, but as I will point out later on, there are all sorts of things layer on top. So if you want to be ceremonial, it has to be produced organically. If you want to be ceremonial, there's an agroforestry component associated with it. If you want to be ceremonial, there are all these things that are layered on top of this, which have nothing to do with any traditional definition of what quote unquote ceremonial cacao might be. And so let's see. It's not in Mexico, not in Central America, not in Europe, not in Canada. It's not a legal category, not a regulatory standard, not an agricultural designation. That's why people like myself, who actually work with origin cacao fermentation protocols, genetics and supply chains, get frustrated. The term has been commercialized and romanticized. Now, there is a character limit. Juan is watching from Facebook. And so there is more to this quote than is shown on the screen. I just can't get at it. And this is Mike from Encore Coffee in Kansas City, who's saying seems legit. So let's go take a little bit more about what Naturalistico is offering. Step into a meaningful role as a certified cacao ceremony practitioner and bring the transformative power of cacao through this to your community. Through the certification, you will be empowered to create sacred spaces for healing, connection, and personal growth, inspiring transformation and unity among those you serve. So, right, and here down here, I've included the emphasis added. So let's go back to the page here, right, and let's go examine this page for some clues about something, right? So the first one of which is 70% off site-wide plus a bonus course with every order. So buy one, get one, but it's a specific course, right? Or a specific group of courses. There's a first-time customer code. They get 10% off their courses. So one of the things that we'll find is that most of the courses are $388, but there's a 97% price for these things. This is sort of almost site-wide. There are very few courses that are not $97, which is an important thing to understand. But let's also go. Now, it turns out that this 4.85 rating on Trustpilot is true. When I looked at Maya Cacao, people may remember that they had a Trustpilot rating of 4 in the high 4s, and it turns out that it was made up. There was no Trustpilot rating. So, but one of the things you can do is you can click on the Trustpilot thing, and you can find out that the company does have a 4.8 out of 5-star rating, 2,500 plus reviews. People say they had a great experience. I'm not going to worry about the cookies right now. And you can, go and find out what it is that people have to say. There are only 5 and 4-star reviews. I find that kind of interesting that there are no lower star reviews. You can do your own reading of things and decide what it means for you. That's the point of this. I'm giving you some things that you can look at. When I looked at Maya, it turns out that they didn't have a Trustpilot review, even though they said they did. And so you can check to see that it works and it appears to be legit. That's an important thing. So this is rated excellent. I assume that this is a Trustpilot, and what is guaranteed is the 30-day refund. So what do we get here? We get 10 modules, and we'll talk about that. There's 1 PDF per module. There are 13 hours and 21 minutes of audio course content, interactive quizzes. We get a certificate. We get continuing education credits via something called the NCCAP. What is that? And insurance eligibility and so let's go take a look at what that might mean really, really quickly. So here we're doing the who and what is Naturalistico. So what does CEU credits via NCCAP mean, right? So it means that continuing education units earned, right, are approved by the National Certification Council for Activity Professionals, right? And you can use these credits toward NCCAP continuing education requirements, right? So typical for activity professional certifications. So the continuing education credits by NCCAP can be applied to NCCAP classes, right? So that's kind of a tautology. So, okay, right? It's not accredited. It's not an accredited institution in a sense that you would think of as a college or university accreditor, right? So it's a certification organization for activity professionals that manages continuing education approvals. So, okay, some course vendors market NCCAP as accepted in all 50 states. A good thing, but the number of organizations, right? And I listed some here that actually other non-NCCAP organizations that accept CCAP. So the NAAP Credentialing Center. Okay, so you can see that there's this sort of incestuous little circle that does accept these. But if you want to think that your continuing education units that you earn from a Naturalistico course are going to be applicable more generally in terms of a higher education in the US or the UK, that's not likely to be true. So it's important to scope what the certification covers and what you're going to get, or what the CEU credits actually mean. And that's an important thing to understand. So again, if you're looking for continuing education units, what you want to do is, before you take this, you want to go to whatever institution you want to apply the continuing education units to. You want to say, do you accept these? And if the answer is yes, you might make one decision. If the answer is no, you might make another decision. I'm not telling you one way or the other. It's just I'm trying to scope what these things get to you. It may be important to you. It may be valuable to you. It may be useful to you. I also took a look at this insurance eligibility coverage ready credential, and that may be true in the UK. It may not be true in the United States. This ICHP organization was really difficult for me to find and to learn anything about it. But what you want to do is, what you may want to go to your insurance company who's providing you with liability insurance. If you're doing any of these health and wellness things, you want to have liability insurance, and you want to go, is this course that I'm taking, is something, and this credential that I get from it, is it useful to you in terms of determining what my premium is going to be, or if any of the things that I do are in fact covered by what you're doing. So that's an important thing to know. So this accredited by 3 international bodies also turns out to be a really interesting question, right? Because what we really want to do is we want to go look at, if I can really quickly, this certificate. And so what we do here is we go take a look at the CMA, the IPHM, and then this other group over here called CPD. And so what are these organizations? Again, I'm suggesting that what you want to do is you want to do your homework, right? And that these are things that you might want to go take a look at it. So the IPHM is the International Practitioners of Holistic Medicine, or something like that. So you're accredited by 3 international bodies, one of which is Holistic Medicine. CMA is the Complementary Medicine, I believe, association. And the CPD is a certification body for professional development, right? There is no organization called CPD. It's a broad term for this professional development certification, right? But it turns out that these things are general. There are organizations that do accredit, quote unquote, these kinds of things, right? What's important to know is that the CPD organizations, the big ones that I could see, that the Complementary Medical Association, the IPHM, are all UK based. They're not US based, even though Naturalistico appears to be headquartered in the United States. So the fact that you're accredited by the IPHM, what does it mean here in the United States? The Complementary Medicine Association, what does it mean here in the United States, right? That's up for you to decide. What I'm suggesting is that you might want to go take a look at this to understand what it means for you and your practice, if this is what it is that you want to do. How valuable are the certifications? So that brings up the point that there are, in fact, 2 audiences for what it is that I'm doing today. Okay? One of the audience, well, there are more than two, but two main audiences, right, are you are interested in becoming a certified cacao ceremonial guide practitioner, right? And you want to know what are the claims that are being made for the certification by the organization that is offering it. That's one thing. The other one is somebody who's looking at this certificate. What is it? What do all these things mean to them? They want to know that IPHM, there's no indication on this that this stands for holistic medicine. There's no indication here that this stands, right, for complementary medical association. So I will not go look this up. International Compliance Assurance for Holistic Practitioners. I'm going to go look this up and update what's going on. But so it's really, really important to understand what this means, right? So this is compliance assurance for holistic practitioners. What does this mean if you call yourself a practitioner of holistic medicine? What does it mean from an insurance perspective? Also, this is the founder and program director. We've got a signature. We have no name. Okay. We got a signature and no name. Okay. What does that mean? Ask yourself, how come I don't know who the founder and program director is? What you want to do is you want to go learn more, right, about this organization and find out who the founder and program director is. So that's something that you want to go do when you go look about this. Because, hey, if you're going to put this certificate up on your wall, among other certificates that you might have, and one of your clients comes in and says, what does this mean, right? You want to be able to tell them what it means, right? And what it means to your business. So let's go and take a little bit more. So for some reason, they decided to embed some of the Trustpilot ratings here, right? Why you want to choose Naturalistico. Oh, instant access. Well, you can get instant access. You're certified in the United States. Our certification protects and ensure your practice. You want to go and figure this out. So the answer, this insures, you want to find out what insures mean. So you want to go contact the organizers of this before you take the class. And you want to say, when you say your certification protects and ensures my practice, what does that mean, right? Most importantly, what you want to do is you want to go to your insurance provider and ask your insurance provider what it means, right? Because those are what they represent, and what your insurance provider will accept are in fact two different things. So they got 500,000 students, they're 30 days free. Well, no, you got a money back guarantee. If so, it only takes you 20 days to take the class, right? If you decide that you don't like it before the 30 days is up, you can ask for a refund. So let's go and take a look at this chart. And I do go through and I have this chart embedded on my page, right? And one of the things that we need to go take a look at this, why practitioners choose Naturalistico. That's this chart here, right? So number one, this compares, right, Naturalistico with a couple of other organizations, one of which is called the International Coaching Federation, which is a globally recognized professional coaching credentialing body. The ICF certification requires supervised coaching hours, mentor coaching, and the competency exam. PAC is the Professional Association of ADHD Coaches. It's a narrowing credential body that certifies ADHD specific coaching, usually alongside or on top of general ICF training. PAC has nothing to do with holistic or ceremonial practice generally. So what we got here, we've got Naturalistico, they charge $97, right? ICF PAC programs cost between $4,000 and $13,000. Well, self-paced, fully online, gotcha. Takes around 48 hours, live cohorts, mentorship. I mean, there are lots of sort of competency exam. There are lots of things that you need, that you have to pay for if you're going to do this with a competent professional. Here, you're doing it by yourself. The accreditation is the International Practitioners of Holistic Medicine, CPD, as we've talked about, Complementary Medical Association, right? And the NCCAP, which are continuing education credits, which are used within a small community of organizations. Best for practitioners who want a credible, affordable credential. And this is one of the things that I would push back on. What makes this a credible credential? Right? Now, I can't decide that for you. You need to decide this for yourself, right? It's $97 for life. You got a 30-day money-back guarantee. This might take you $15,000 in 6 to 24 months. If you go to university, it could take you 2 to 8 years. Clinical or academic career paths, or somebody who needs ICF or PAC for a specific role, right? And this is an important differentiation, right? These are designed for serious professionals, and these are designed for people who want an affordable credential. And they're very different things, and they attest to very different things. Again, what I want you to do, all right, is not say, hey, what's going on here? This is a fact. This is a scam. This is fiction, whatever, right? I want you to go and take a look at these things for yourself and decide what it means to you. And that's the important part. What does this mean to you? So let's scroll down a little bit more. So I go through a lot of this. I go through a lot of these things. So CPD is a generic term. There is a CPD credentialing service called CPD Standard. Again, it's in the UK, right? So in the role, if the US, if the role you want requires a license, and international wellness continuing education accreditation won't replace the legal requirements. So again, understand what it is that you're looking for. And just a quick shout out to Elmer Pineda, who's coming in from Honduras. Hola, Elmer. I'm looking forward to seeing you, hopefully, in Indiana in November at the Midwest Craft Chocolate Festival, and getting another bar of your anise avocado chocolate. Really, really good. So let's really quickly go. So one of the things that they do show on this page, that's interesting, is they talk about the course description and they give the modules. Not certain why I'm having a redraw problem here. But module 1 is Introduction to Ceremonial Cacao. The reason why is I need to redraw the page. So let me reload the page. So Introduction to the Cacao Ceremony, the historical roots. It's a 50-minute audio plus a PDF. They talk about the modern adaptation. Ceremonies have evolved, blending traditional roots with contemporary wellness practices. And so this is one thing you do want to understand, right? Is they're positioning this explicitly, right, as a modern adaptation, that much of what it is that they're going to, quote unquote, teach you, one of the things they're going to present to you, may have nothing to do with how cacao was consumed in a spiritual / sacred / ceremonial way pre-Columbian. Prior to the arrival of Europeans in the Americas. So it's an important thing to know. So in Introduction to the Sacred Cacao Ceremony, right? There's no one sacred cacao ceremony. There's no the there, right? They're going to tell you how to put together sacred spaces, right? Understanding cacao as a plant medicine. Cacao facilitates healing, emotional integration, and connection to the higher self, supporting participants in profound personal and spiritual growth. They talk about preparation and storage, nutritional benefits, the energetic properties, opening heart chakra, emotional release, introspection, spiritual connection. You have to believe in the idea of the heart chakra, which has nothing to do with the history of cacao in the Americas. There are some nutritional benefits. The module covers the biochemistry, its impact on neurotransmitters, how it supports. All right, so not bad. But one of the things that they don't do here, which I think is really important, is they don't define what it is that ceremonial cacao is. There is no clear definition in the notes. We're going to tell you what ceremonial cacao is, right? We're going to tell you that it's Theobroma cacao. It thrives in tropical ecosystems with unique characteristics, cauliflory, which is, I don't think it's unique, it's unusual. There are other plants which exhibit cauliflory, and diverse cultivar types. I don't know that structure groups Criollo Forastero Tributario, right? Influencing its some ceremonial quality, right? So, okay, we're going to learn about those things, ritual structure and flow. So if you're going to put together a ceremony, you need to create a welcoming atmosphere. You need to have invocations. You need to align the group energy. Mindfulness and heart-centered meditations. Meditation and mindfulness are the things that I would agree that if you're going to consume cacao ritually, consuming it mindfully, right, in a meditative sense, whether by yourself or in a group, right, is the way you want to approach it, right? I don't know why it's heart-centered meditation. Oh, this probably have to do with heart chakras and things like that. But integrating sound and movement, integrating sound healing and dance, nothing to do with these are again. This is new age woo-woo when it layered on top of a vehicle of using cacao, right? So just go and keep that in mind. Integrating breath work, again, this is a modern thing, has nothing to do with the way cacao was consumed in pre-Columbian times. One thing I will say is really important here, and I will give them props because it's not mentioned just here, but it's mentioned someplace else, is safety protocols. Right? And this is something I don't know that necessarily happens in touristic kinds of cacao ceremonies in a producing country. Screen participants for contraindications, one of which is, are you taking MAOIs, monoamine oxidase inhibitors? Are you taking SSRIs, so selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors? There are modern medicines that people take that if you're going to give people a high dose of a food which contains large amounts of theobromine, you want to stay away from. So at least they do talk about you want to make sure that the people who are engaged in the ceremony are not taking anything which could put them medically at risk. So we'll give them props for that. Sound healing and music integration, incorporating movement and dance. These are all modern things that there is a spirituality. Is there the spirit of cacao is an interesting kind of concept. Ethical practice and cultural sensitivity. I just think it's interesting that you've got these really long key points within it, but there are no key points within this module or this facilitating your first ceremony. So I'm sort of curious as to why there's a lack of detail in these. Again, I'm just pointing out things that you might, if you are interested in taking the certification, things that you might want to consider yourself and ask. In a sense, I'm like, hey Clay, why didn't you spend $97 and take them up on their 30-day guarantee? Maybe I will. Anyway, but I didn't do it before today because I wanted to go into this clean, right? As if you were just looking at this organization for the first time. I'm just looking at it for the first time. Another thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go take a look at the team. So Alexander Ross, who are these people? He's a neuro-linguistic programming master, right? And there's no link here, so we can't get any more information about who Alexander Ross is. Maria Byrne is a head writer and herbal specialist. There's a LinkedIn profile. Brian Siegel is a peak performance coach. May not have much to do with a cacao certification thing, but there's a LinkedIn profile. Clotilde Roland is a content creator and editor. I will get to Ms. Roland in a little bit. But mostly what I want to do is I want to talk about Dr. Paula Abola, lecturer in neuroscience, psychology, and behavioral sciences. So this is the team that puts together the Naturalistico programming, as near as we can tell. The guides and the scripts for the audio materials. But let's go take a look at Dr. Paula Abola, PhD, right? Lecturer in neuroscience, psychology, and behavioral sciences. So they provide the LinkedIn profile. Follow the LinkedIn profile. So she, let's see, we're not connected. European International University, Paris. University of Jamestown. So let's go take a look at her experience. She's at the European International University of Paris. She's been there for 11 months on contract. She's the Associate Dean for Academic Affairs. Not much to do with neuroscience or the other things that are listed on the site. She's Director of DBA Studies. So this is a Doctorate of Business Administration. She's an Assistant Professor in doctoral level courses in Business Research, Methodology, Statistic. She's an Adjunct Professor in Research Methodology and Business and Management, an Adjunct Professor, design and deliver undergraduate level courses for Bachelor of Science in Business, an Adjunct Professor, design and deliver courses for students enrolled in the Master of Arts in Teaching English as a Second Language. So TESOL, English to Speakers of Other Languages, Adjunct Professor, design and deliver graduate level short programs in neuropsychology covering brain relationships. So there is some connection to neuropsychology, but notice that her PhD is, we'll get to what her PhD is in, but so go take a look at it. Let's go take a look at her educational background. So her educational background is she's got a DPhil, Doctor of Philosophy in Clinical Research, okay, but none of this, right? So this appears to be classes that she took, and her dissertation is Understanding Knowledge Disparities in Shared Decision-Making in Parkinson's Disease. This is personal to this person. A family member has Parkinson's or had Parkinson's disease. That makes sense. So Queen Mary College, again, a master's in science and clinical drug development, but there's no specific neuroscience, neuropsychology concentration there. So it's interesting to go and take a look at, match up what it is that the website says about her background and experience and what her LinkedIn profile says. One thing that I do want to talk about, which I think is important, right, is that Ms. Ebola says she's got all these licenses and certifications. And what's really important to understand is that 1 certificate of attendance, 2 certificates of attendance, 3 certificates of attendance, 4 certificates of attendance, 5 certificates of attendance, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So she went to a webinar, safeguarding. Okay, this is what we would call credential stuffing. So, she participated in a webinar. I want to know what that has to do with her lecturer in neuroscience, psychology, and behavioral sciences. I didn't see it in her education. I didn't see it in her professional CV. Go take a look at it. This is one thing you can ask yourself and say, who are the people who are putting this together? Do their biographies support what it is that I want to go learn? So Cassidy is a yoga meditation instructor, a clinical dietitian. That could make sense in terms of this. An executive coach, a lecturer in what? I mean, go take a look at the credentials. The other thing that you're going to want to go do is you're going to want to go and go take a look at the other classes that are being put together. But first, I want to point out there's something that I think is a flex, and it's something that I wish the International Institute of Chocolate and Cacao Tasting would do, which is to verify. So every certificate should have a number, and you just type in the number, or there's a QR code, and you can confirm whether a certificate is valid. I think that would be a really, really cool thing for the ISCCT to say, I'm a level 1, a level 2, a level 3 graduate. I should be able to go and look up a certificate number and be able to figure out whether or not, what they're saying is true. So this is a flex. I think it's good. So you have to decide, what does this mean? So let's go take a look at, neurodiversity. Here are other classes that they give. Neurodiversity in the brain, an autism support coach. We knew that was going to be there, but notice, normally $398.97. Normally $398.97. Normally $398.97. So you got to ask yourself, why across every single one of the courses that they offer, they're offering such a steep discount. Not all of them are 96. Some of them are a little more expensive, some of them are a little less expensive, but a cognitive neuroscience certification, wow, 98 people have taken it. I mean, that's really quite remarkable, right? So, but what does it mean? So you need to ask yourself, I mean, all right, what does that mean? Personal and spiritual development, a certification in sacred geometry, in aura therapy, right? In chakra energy healing, in quantum coach certification. I have no idea what it means to be a quantum coach, but notice 77, even marked down even more, 97, 97, 97, a shamanism course. Wow. I mean, this is probably, I think, for me, the most egregious example of cultural misappropriation. You can become a certified shaman, right, if you take this course. I believe that's what they're talking about. Foundations of medicinal mushrooms. This could be as close to to be as legit, right? So you can understand what medicinal mushrooms are and what they're doing. Right? Psychedelic integration, Ikigai life coach. So that's interesting. Ikigai is just a Japanese concept that says find something you like to do, something you're good at, something the world needs, and something that you can get remunerated for, right? But so life coach certification, you can become somebody who teaches the concept of Ikigai to other people. And now we have the Cacao Ceremonial Guide confirmation. But before we go there, another thing to do is just type in a keyword like cacao. And what do you get? How to facilitate a cacao ceremony. And here's where we're going to make the connection back to Ms. Clotilde Roland. Right? And so what we want to do is we can go to her profile and we can find out that she is a practicing silvotherapist with a background in naturopathy. So just what does a background mean? A background in naturopathy. She has a degree in naturopathy. I don't know what background means, but what does it mean to be a silvotherapist? Well, a silvotherapist is a professional who practices silvotherapy, okay? Also known as forest therapy or forest bathing, which involves guiding individuals in connecting with nature to promote healing and well-being. So Ms. Roland is the person who's responsible for putting together this how to facilitate a cacao ceremony and screen clients with care. I gotta say that of all the things that I've read on the site so far, the fact that they do talk about being careful with people who are on prescription drugs, if you're going to do them with a high dose cacao, which has got a lot of theobromine in it, you want to be very, very careful because there could be some negative interactions with it. But one of the things they do talk about matching the dose to the person, but there's no guidelines here on how to do that. And I didn't see any guidelines on, say, you've got somebody who weighs 100 kilograms, you've got somebody who weighs 80 kilograms. How do you factor in the dose? How do you calculate what the person is capable of consuming? It's an important part of this, but also ethnographic work has described cacao as a vehicle for transcendence. This is where it's also really important to go take a look at sources. So this is an undergraduate thesis. It's a graduate thesis in 2021, an MA in folklore and public culture program in the Division of Graduate Studies at the University of Oregon in Eugene. So, okay, so we learn a little bit more. We learned about the author is, and this is an MFA thesis, right? The thesis considers ethnographic data and documentation of cacao ceremonies as presented by Keith's Cacao, Aura Cacao, and Imbue, and a survey data of 118 ceremony participants and the cacao producers website. So, okay, I mean, maybe it's okay in depth in terms of a graduate thesis is going to be, but cacao is a psychoactive substance that is regarded by members within some new religious communities, which is interesting because not all New Age practices are in fact religious communities, but it's interesting that they made that connections, right? The cacao, that somehow this is a religious movement. And I think that, I had a conversation with somebody in preparation for this who says, oh, in the UK, more people are talking about cacao ceremonies than there are ceremonial cacao than they're talking about, for example, specialty cacao and specialty chocolate. And it may be that this creation of a community around a shared spiritual identity could be one of the reasons why it's doing that. People are looking for something that they're not finding, and they're finding it this way, right? So it's cacao is a psychoactive substance. When mixed with water and imbibed, practitioners believe they're ingesting the physical manifestation of cacao spirit, a fifth dimensional being known for her transformative, heart opening, and grounding properties. Right? So, yeah, okay. So is that what ceremonial cacao is in cacao ceremonies? But when we go take a look at this, how to facilitate a ceremony, what we'll do is we'll find that this vehicle for transcendence, they're linking back to this master's thesis, and they link to this master thesis on more than one occasion in here. Go take a look. Safe cacao ceremony facilitation. Safe is important. Rests on honoring cacao's lineage, creating a grounded container, using clear screening and consent. I think match doses and practices to real bodies. Right. So, right. I think the grounded container, you need to create a space that's safe, right, for the ceremony to happen within. And you might use smudging, right, and other techniques in order to make it safe. So you can go through and take a look at it and see for yourself whether it is. So heart space, again, you're buying into a really, really large collection of beliefs when you go and take a look at this. And as I said earlier, right, there's no definition here about what is ceremonial cacao. Keith comes up. Keith Wilson is his name. You can do a little, if you want to, you can go take a look at who he is. On this post, if you want to, I'm not going to play it here because you can't hear the audio with it, but there's this guy, Liam Brown Awaken. This guy's in UK. He's talking about accepting a delivery. Well, maybe I will play it even though you can't hear the audio. Is that, right? You'll get the at least the words, but he's going to play some music. He's going to thank Keith. He's going to talk about it. This is what a modern cacao shaman looks like, right? He's got drums. He's got musical instruments. Okay, and he's doing this in a warehouse, which is not a sacred space. Thank you, Lady Cacao. Thank you, Ish Cacao. Thank you, Keith Wilson. Thank you to your guides on playing this instrument. Energies that have worked during this blessing, we may feel the abundance, bring the sound of creation, the hymn of the universe, misspelled mantra into this cacao. All right, so the vibration of creation of Brahma into the cacao. Well, that's introducing a completely different religion into what's going on. So this is where you need to understand about the fact that what's happening here is that ceremonies, right, like this are importing New Age practices that tie into other naturalistic course offerings, which is important, right? So there are sound healing courses, there are breathwork courses, there are all these other courses that you can take, and you can now, if I can do this, apply what it is that I'm learning to ceremonial cacao, right? It becomes they might get you for $97 for one class, but it's $97 each for 4 or 5 or 6 classes. It's in order to set a broader framework of what's going on. So in conclusion, we want to go back. So I skipped over this. While not related to the cacao ceremony certification, the trauma healing coach certification module topics include EMDR, eye movement desensitive and reprocessing, prolonged exposure therapy, cognitive processing therapy, DBT, dialectic behavior therapy, These are all, pretty serious things, which $97 worth of 20 to 40 hours of self-guided study. A certified autism coach for $97 of self-guided study. If you have to decide whether that makes sense to you or is safe to you and what it means. Is this autism coaching around guided communication? I don't know. Now that I've brought that up, I need to ask. I need to go and look to see what it is. But you need to figure that out. So number one, so I have. We'll say this: there are good uses and bad uses for LLMs, and I use mostly Claude, although I will fact check using other large language models. So I'll get one saying one thing, another saying another thing, and then I'll try to resolve it in a third thing where there are a third LLM. If there are conflicts, I'm necessarily going to take one point of view, and then I'm going to go and take a look at the sources and follow the sources and review the sources and tell me and go and examine what they're actually saying. So trying to find the primary sources and go look at what the primary source is, not looking just at what an abstract of the primary sources are, which is something you can do. But the LLMs that I use are trained on me, right? They know a lot about me as a person, and I fed them a lot of project context knowledge on the topics about this. So when they go and look at things, they have my background and what it is that I know rather than a generic background. So if you're going to use Claude, use it on a subscription, right? I do agree with that. Pay the $20 a month if you want to use it, and then use projects a great deal. As the starting point for things. Put a lot of project context into them, right? And then you can iterate on that stuff. You can change the instructions. You can use skills. You can upload a lot of information about yourself, and so it's going to do that. So, and I've talked about my process in doing this. And if it makes sense, if anybody would like to know my process, just put a note in the comments. And what I may do is I may go through. This is how I use LLMs to do my research. Maybe help you. But number one, so I have a source quality rating as part of my fact checking, my fact checking routine. So nothing here is peer reviewed. The author credentials, company listed, instructor bios, nothing specific to cacao or cocoa subject matter, publication reputation, commercial wellness education platform selling dozens of similar certifications, not a specialist authority. It was updated recently. Methodological rigor, not applicable. It's a marketing page rather than research, right? Overall quality, they put this at a C. Informative for evaluating the product's marketing claims, but not a reliable primary source for cacao history or science. So it's important to understand what's going on. So I did point out there's a link to the Maya ceremonial cacao. Is it a scam? That I did recently. So one pattern that connects Naturalistico to Maya is the substitution of authority-laden, confidently authoritative sounding language for verifiable sourcing. So Maya invented a cardiologist and a research institute. Naturalistico lists instructor titles: NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Programming Master, Herbal Specialist, Peak Performance Coach, that sound credentials but aren't obviously connected to the subject of ceremonial cacao. Ceremonial cacao marketing borrows terms like 5,000-year secret and uses them if they were settled history rather than a genuinely contested research question. So the trend across wellness certification and cacao supplement markets alike is toward flattening complexity into a single confident claim, which is efficient marketing and thin history in roughly equal measure. The TLDR is Naturalistico Certified Ceremonial Cacao Guide course a scam? What I will say is, in my mind, in my opinion, based on everything I know about this, it bears many of the hallmarks of being one, right? That the credentialing that they're talking about may not necessarily be supportable, right? Within the narrow range of holistic medicine and complementary medicine, and right this the certification universe that they're talking about, it seems to be a self-referential circle of things that are going on. And none of these certificates appear to have any value, right, educationally, professionally, outside of this fairly small circle of things. And so I would say, if what it is that you want to do is you want to be a certified ceremonial cacao guide, right? That spending $97 and spending 20 to 40 hours in reviewing what it is that goes on could be interesting to you, right? But for me, right, I don't think that, number one, because there is, in fact, a definition for what ceremonial cacao is, right? There can't be any supportable, right, certified ceremonial cacao coach without knowing what it is. Now, one of the things I didn't talk about today is I've got some more resources that I'll link to. So Jamie Metzel, Confessions of a Chocolate Shaman. It's a couple of year old guidepost, but he does have what he calls the Metzel School of Chocolate Shamanism. And you can go take a look at what's going on. He mentions Keith Wilson here. He thanks Keith Wilson for all these kinds of things, for inspiration, and he does provide a bunch of resources. So free online education. Ooh, if seeking to perform any, if so, get Freeline ordination, right? So if you want to do this, join a church, right? Become ordained as a minister in a church. So there's this interesting modern connection to religion, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I do want to point out this. This is from Soma Cacao, not Soma Chocolate Makers in the United States. Let's go back. So, but this is Soma Cacao in Australia. And one of the things the author, Rose Cousins, mentions, which I think is really interesting, is this one, which is, if in accordance with Mayan and Aztec legend, cacao is intrinsically spiritual, why does it need all these additional man-made blessings? Really, really good observation. So you may want to Google what is ceremonial grade cacao. Generally refers to Mesoamerican beans that have been fermented, lightly roasted, and ground into a paste. Must be minimally processed, organically grown, and harvested in small batches using traditional methods. I mean, I haven't had this harvested in small batches thing, perhaps processed, but not harvested. That's an interesting one. Some sources suggest it needs to be grown and distributed with the sole intention of its ceremonial use, which is news to me, right? Others say it is essentially, it has to be personally blessed by a Mayan elder or some form of indigenous priestess. So even if the guide is masculine, the blessing has to come from a female. So there's a lot of stuff which is being layered onto and borrowed, right, and put on top of quote unquote ceremonial, right? And the author asks, if in accordance with Mayan and Aztec legend, cacao is intrinsically spiritual, why does it need all these extra blessings? Really, 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 really good question. Another thing you might want to go take a look at, this is, again, go take a look at what is ceremonial cacao across 3 or 4 different sites, and you'll realize just how disconnected the definitions are. And then finally, here's a company called Aura. I haven't done any deep dive into Aura, but they are mentioned in the how to hold a cacao ceremony by Ms. Roland, Clotilde Roland, on the Naturalistico, how to facilitate. So Aura is mentioned in this post by Ms. Roland on the Naturalistico site. But when you see tantric rose blossom, right, as a flavor of ceremonial cacao, right, what you're looking at is again this conflation, this mashing together of multiple traditions, which have nothing to do with any Mayan practice associated with cacao. So number one is tantric, is I believe a Hindu a Hindu practice. It's not a Mayan practice or Aztec practice. Roses were imported from Europe, so they're not traditional. So go take a look. Rose, lavender, bergamot. Again, go take a look at not just tasting notes, but these are going to be added ingredients, right? So this is freshly ground rose petals. I don't know, orange peel and licorice, right? So orange is not native to the Americas. Licorice, I don't know if licorice is native to the Americas, but you get the idea. Go take a look, and you're going to understand. Chili, cinnamon, cardamom. I don't think cardamom is original to the Americas. So go. This has got the taste of brie cheese. Maybe that comes from the earthy bits of the mushrooms, but depending upon what the mushroom is, again, the mushroom may not be right indigenous to the Americas. You need to understand that what they're doing is they're mixing traditions here. These are not authentic in any way. These are not genuine in any way. These are a layering of new age, right, and more modern practices within the wellness industry generally, which have been layered on top of cacao, and they're using the ancient cacao connection to, in some respects, perhaps legitimize what it is that they're doing. And I'm not, solely pointing out Aura here. There are many, many companies who offer quote unquote ceremonial cacao products that use ingredients that are not native to the Americas. They have no connection whatsoever to the original recipes that have been put together. I've seen people who call themselves ceremonial cacao guides who will take a ceremonial cacao, which is unflavored, and that for a particular ceremony, they will add flavorings and other ingredients, which they will believe will deliver, sorry for the video skipping here, hoping the audio still works. Well, they believe will deliver some very, very specific additional benefits. So you need to be careful in understanding what that is being offered, and if genuineness and authenticity is actually something that you care about. This could be it. You may not care about that genuineness and authenticity, in which case, go for it, right? There are a lot of people who are looking for ways to find spiritual meaning in their life, and this may be a way to do it. And the side hustle here is going to be, oh, what if I can sell them ceremonial cacao for a lot of money? So if they're coming to me for at $8, $9, $10 for a 1 ounce serving, and I'm paying a fraction of that, I can create a very, very lucrative practice out of this. And so as a side hustle, it might be a really good thing to do. I am not endorsing this by any stretch of the imagination. I don't think it's genuine. I don't think it's authentic. I think that the layering all of this new age stuff on top of it is one of the things that destroys its genuineness and authenticity. And the fact that there does not appear to be any specific definition of this is what ceremonial grade cacao is. I would be wary of, here are recommended providers of the ceremonial grade cacao, because there might be some sort of commission scheme associated with it. I would be very, very careful in terms of understanding what it is that's going on here, right? And with that, that's it for today's episode of Pod Safe Chocolate on ceremonial cacao guide certification. This coming Tuesday, my guest is going to be Keith Ayub, who is a pediatric nutritionist. We're going to be talking about some recent research about how processing affects flavonols and other antioxidant and other health benefits of cacao. That's coming Tuesday, the 18th. So I hope you come and join me there. Have a great weekend. If you're not a member of the Chocolate Life, you want to support the work that I do, go click the join button. I would appreciate it. If you had a couple of likes on this video, please share, subscribe, comment. If you're not a member of the Pod Safe Chocolate channel, please do so. I've passed the 1,000 member mark. So thank everybody for that support. And for me to remind everybody, as I do at the end of every episode, if you're working with chocolate and you're not having fun, you just might be doing it wrong. Until the next time, everybody, ciao. Oops, got it. Ciao.